This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. Okay, coming up in this forecast, we are going to be looking at what looks to be a very high chance of tropical development in the Western Caribbean as we go through the week. We'll talk about the areas I expect that could be impacted by some very heavy rain and wind. We'll look at the potential rainfall totals, a very windy forecast in the Bahamas, and a lot of areas that could get tropical impacts from this disturbance. Now, one reason why I waited to record this just a little bit later than I normally do is I knew the Hurricane Center was going to have a 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time update, and I thought that they were going to do exactly what they did, and that is up this chance development to 70%. So now we have a red area. So the breaking news, if you will, is that the Hurricane Center has now upped this to a high chance, 70% or higher for development. And all the models are still on track to produce a tropical system there. So as we get into it, thank you for liking the video. I appreciate it. And if you're not a subscriber, you want the latest on this, we'll talk about it coming up. We've got the whole forecast, and then we'll break down at the end how we're going to be covering this for you here at Meteo Mundo. At this point in time, on this Monday afternoon, we are seeing pretty good rains developing here along the coastline of Central America. That's going to be one of the immediate impacts, is some heavy showers and storms developing along the eastern coastlines of places like Nicaragua and Honduras and Panama and back towards Costa Rica. And you can see that flare up of moisture there. It's still a fairly broad, disorganized area, but some of these areas have also had a lot of rain from a disturbance about 7 to 10 days ago, and they just don't need a lot more. We'll talk about the rainfall potential there coming up, but that's kind of the immediate of what's happening at this point in time. If we take a look at the upper level water vapor imagery here from our enhanced satellite imagery, you can just see those blues are the deep, rich moisture that is sitting over some very warm sea surface temperatures. So again, everything is on track, appears to be conducive for tropical development in this area as this disturbance slowly moves up to the north and to the east. Back over to the IR imagery here. And again, so what we're going to be looking at is this to meander north and east over the next several days. And that slow movement could continue to produce heavy rain along the eastern Central American coastline in some areas for the next several days ahead, and then developing that moisture in places like Jamaica and Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, and Haiti, the eastern sides of Cuba as well, as it slowly moves north and east. So we're going to have a heavy rain threat as the system develops, and then as it moves into these areas, we're going to obviously pick up the additional wind threat for you as well. But again, you can see the formation zone over the next 7 days, and it's not a very long formation zone because we're talking about a 7-day time frame here. When we take a look at just how far we're talking about from kind of southwest to northeast, you're only looking at an area here that's less than 1,000 miles. That's a very small area to traverse over a week, but you get the idea that this system being so slow could certainly produce some heavy rains along its path. All right, let's take a look. We got several different models we're going to look at for you here. Going to start off with the GFS. Throw this into motion for you. And again, we'll take a look at the GFS solution has been, all continues to be fairly similar over the last several days, which again, having model run-to-run consistency is something that's important. It's a little bit weaker. It's a little bit more in line with the European, still stronger than the European, but coming down on the wind threat. And one reason why is because of the interaction, especially with the island of Hispaniola as we get into late week. So let's break this down kind of day by day. Let me back this up and we'll start it again. For today, nothing organizes. The potential just for some more heavy rain, again, along portions of the coast is going to be really spotty, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get some isolated flash flooding. Then as we get into our Tuesday and Wednesday, as the disturbance wraps up a little bit more and pulls away, that should yank the moisture generally away from Central America, but some spots, especially down towards Panama, with a rich southerly flow of moisture, could continue to see some heavier rain. That's something that I'll be watching. You can see down in Panama, especially there towards Panama City, still kind of wrapped up in the rain. Then as we get into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I really want to focus for our friends in Jamaica and Haiti and the Dominican Republic and the eastern sides of Cuba. So again, before the core of the winds gets into your area, heavy rainfall is likely. This is going to be something that we're going to have to really closely monitor here for Jamaica. And again, Hispaniola is an extremely mountainous island, mountaintops get up to about 11,000 feet in portions of the island. So, I mean, mudslides and terrain issues there with heavy rain always comes with a tropical system that will then pull through the Turks into the Caicos. And it's at this point in time, again, that we start to kind of get more of a hybrid system where we start to see this interact with a mid-latitude cyclone that's going to be over the Bahamas, and that's going to produce a lot of wind in this area. But it quickly kind of becomes extratropical and races to the north and to the east. So kind of in general, I'm concerned about the rain threat in these areas. And then you get to the Turks and Caicos and the southern Bahamas, it's kind of the wind threat as we start to see this become extratropical in nature. Now, also notice that we'll get some heavier rain as far east as Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, maybe the northern sides of the Leeward Islands, but generally speaking, that heavier rain will be, again, from San Juan off towards the west, especially towards portions of the Dominican Republic. So that's what it looks like on the future radar. We'll take a look at what it looks like on the future winds for you here. Same time frame here, and we'll put this into motion. And again, it's going to take a few days, so we have some time to monitor this. But again, we'll kind of highlight the areas that I would be on what I call watch and wait mode, but certainly Jamaica and Hispaniola and the Turks and Caicos would be included on that. And by the way, I'm going to show you the European model coming up. It's beginning to get more in line with this same track from the GFS here, basically sliding through the eastern side of Jamaica and then towards the western coastline of Hispaniola. And again, the time frame here is going to be Thursday into Friday, so several more days. Notice again, as it begins to interact with that mountainous island, it kind of rips apart a little bit, just a bit there. Now, again, eastern side of your storm is always the worst side, so the track of this may not be the worst for Jamaica. Maybe keeping the heavier rain just to the east of the island, it would be no good news for Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and then through the Turks and Caicos as a pretty good wind maker as well. So let's loop this into motion. You can just kind of see this move through. Now, again, these are wind gusts. They're not sustained winds, but certainly the GFS model supports a tropical storm. So GFS model says we're going to get vents here. May not end up being a higher end tropical storm simply because of the land interaction. And then again, I really do believe very quickly this becomes extra tropical. Now that could produce some gale force winds in the Turks and Caicos and the southeast Bahamas, because you get that drier air that gets shoved down to the surface, and we can get some really strong bursts of wind out of that. I've experienced it firsthand before in tropical systems that are falling apart or becoming extratropical, where the rain threat isn't as significant as the wind threat, and that is a possibility. I do want to pause this real quick and go up to the Bahamas, and we'll get more into this in a second, but there could be a non-tropical low trying to develop here in the northern side of the Bahamas as well. So you're going to have two areas of low pressure that is going to bring a tremendous amount of wind to the far western sides of the Atlantic. So again, we could have some extremely strong winds for Grand Bahama, for Nassau, for Eleuthera, for Walker's Key, for the Bimini area. This would be starting on Wednesday into Thursday and Friday. And then those two systems almost kind of merge. They're fairly broad in nature, very elongated, but they kind of move and they swing off. And oh, by the way, Bermuda could get in on the act for some gale force winds next weekend as well. Let's go over to the I want to look at the precipitable water. I did this yesterday. That was a pretty cool feature. Throw this into motion. So when you're looking at the precipitable water, you're basically looking at how wet is the atmosphere, right? And obviously, when you're talking about with a tropical system, it's like a sponge. Now, we're still getting into the third week of November here. So that's why I expect a quick transition into an extratropical or post-tropical system. And you can see that here on this precipitable water. First of all, it looks very tropical in nature as it's south and east of Jamaica and then moves up to the north and to the east. But I do want you to notice the greens and blues on your map. That is going to be the drier air. Notice how quickly that moves in. All right. So we're going to start to see that transition right around Hispaniola or just south into the east based on the GFS model, which again should push in some strong but drier air very, very quickly. So there will be some forward speed to this north of Hispaniola, but it's going to be very slow and meandering through the Caribbean. Once it gets into the Atlantic, fast forward speed, so I'm not concerned about the rain for the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas, but I certainly am for Hispaniola and eastern Cuba and Jamaica. And we could see some, again, additional heavier rain for portions of Central America. Maybe the ABC Islands catch some of that. If you live in the Cayman Islands, I think you're just a little bit farther enough to the north and west where you should generally avoid some of the heaviest rain. Okay, let's look at the rainfall totals here. Going to loop this into motion. This is going to be over just the next 5 days, and then we'll extend it out. So let's talk about kind of what's happening in the here and now, but that's far enough in time where we start to see this swath of what could be over a foot of rain track up towards Jamaica and Hispaniola in eastern Cuba, and then just to the south of the Turks and Caicos. So again, we're looking at, actually I've extended this out a few more days than I thought. So we're looking at into the early part of the weekend here, but it's about the same scenario. So let's first of all start down in Panama, where we could have, again, more than a half foot of rain. Now, a lot of this might be falling in the next couple of days, but that is still very torrential rainfall. So we'll be monitoring our friends in Central America. You get a little bit farther north, the areas that were more hit hard by the disturbance last week, there could still be some heavier rain there towards Roatan and San Pedro Sula, up towards Belize City, but just a few inches of rain, not 6, 8, 10 inches of rain like other areas are going to see. Anywhere that you see the yellows are going to be above 10 inches of rain. And I want you to notice how on the GFS model, we are razor thin shaving a foot of rain to a couple of inches of rain in Jamaica. Here's what I would say for my friends in Jamaica. Please keep tuning in. I'll keep you updated. The bottom line is that we're talking about a razor thin margin of where this heavy rain might fall. If the center were to be 50 miles west, we could get a lot more of this 10, 11, 8 inches of rain that's on the eastern tip of the island to encompass a lot more of the island. So again, I don't buy this really tight gradient. I mean, this would be exactly where the center of circulation would track. So, we have to assume that the strongest winds and the heaviest rain are going to be right on the eastern side, but it's such a tight gradient of rain. I don't think that's going to play out. I think it's going to be a little bit more smoothed out in the rainfall totals. But obviously with the center of circulation on the GFS moving right across the eastern side of the island, we'd have to deal with the potential for some rain threats as well. So just kind of zooming in here, if we look, Kingston, 2 inches of rain, Port Antonio, 8 inches. Again, probably not that tight of a gradient. Then you get to Mandeville, just a half inch of rain. Yeah, I don't buy that. But again, heavy rain and wind threat will accompany this. And then you get back into Hispaniola. And again, on the western shoreline, Haiti, over a foot of rain, potentially Port-au-Prince, even towards 6. Some of the more mountainous terrain could still have several inches of rain. Santo Domingo, around 6 inches of rain as well. And then you notice as you get into the Turks and the Caicos, we could still have 4 or 5 inches of rain, but it's not going to be sitting in one area too long. So we should begin to fade the heavy rain chance as we get into this area. Still could be a quick flooding downpour, but a persistent rain that causes over a foot of rain, no, I don't think so. And then again, in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, a couple of inches of rain is possible, but again, a pretty tight gradient. You get back towards Hispaniola, those are the areas that I have the greatest concern for this rain. But it's a tremendous amount of moisture that's going to be thrown into the Caribbean with this disturbance. So a big rainmaker is on the way for the areas that I just mentioned. Now we look at the European model and the pressure track there. So we continue to see, and you can see the time frame here, a slow development in the Southwest Caribbean that's moving north. If you notice where that low goes, look how close to the track it is with the GFS. So the European model is very much in agreement with the track. Yesterday, it was on the western side of Jamaica. I know it's only about a 50, 100-mile shift off towards the east, but now it's picking up more on tracking just east of Jamaica, through Haiti, the western sides of Hispaniola, then through the Turks and Caicos, and accelerating very rapidly to the north and to the east. So our two major global models are very much in consensus. With track and timing, the European model still is a little bit weaker overall. Now, if we look at Saturday morning, okay? If we look at Saturday morning, look at the pressure plots. This is our tropical system in the ensemble model, the European, anywhere from the southeast Bahamas all the way back down southeast of Jamaica. So a little bit difference in the timing, but I just wanted to point this on because here is your non-tropical low developing in the northern side of the Bahamas or just north, and you're going to have some really tight winds. You've got the counterclockwise winds here, okay? You've got the counterclockwise winds right here, and there could be a big push of wind in between the two, or they kind of elongate themselves out, and it's just gale conditions through the western Atlantic. I think the wind is going to be a huge threat over the weekend. Now, the European model has slightly backed off the chance of a tropical storm, at least in the Caribbean. That's why I'm talking about the heavy rain threat as the biggest impact potential for Jamaica and Hispaniola and the eastern sides of Cuba. But then as it accelerates north and east, it could become a tropical storm, you know, maybe as it's moving through Hispaniola, but potentially a little bit farther to the north and to the east. But still a decent chance, 40 to 50% chance that we end up getting a tropical storm, even on the European model. And again, the GFS is a bit more aggressive. So areas on alert. These are the areas that I would put in what I call watch and wait mode, meaning you just need to keep an eye on the forecast and obviously check in with your local officials in your local government for any emergency preparedness in your area. That is your responsibility. So check in with those local officials. Jamaica. Now, I put the Cayman Islands in simply because we're still too far out to really say exactly where this is going. But based on the models I've seen so far, you should stay west of the worst weather there in the Cayman Islands. But certainly for Cuba and Haiti, the Dominican Republic, the Turks and the Caicos, and the Southeast Bahamas. Those are the areas that really need to be paying very close attention. You can also pay very close attention to this forecast by going to our different social media platforms. We've got you covered. If you need to kind of catch what's happening in between things, all you got to do is go to our Instagram, TikTok, our Facebook pages as well. And we have a email address, myMediaMundo@gmail.com, if you want to send us some videos or a picture or two as well. So going back again to what's going to be happening here, you can see again, there is our disturbance with a 70% chance of development. I want to real quickly as well switch over to the Bahamas before we kind of talk a little bit more about a couple of other things. So to the Bahamas, and I want to switch over to what's going to be happening here in the short term, looking at the wind gusts, because again, we're going to see this area of low pressure try and develop off of this as well. So I'm switching over here to our reflectivity product, and let's extend this out and loop it. So let me take off the satellite here real quick, guys. All right, so ahead of this for the Bahamas, we're going to have some of that rain pick up, and you can see it's going to be fast moving, wind driven showers, some heavier rain developing as this approaches. Again, this is all ahead of the actual system, but it could get very wet in the Bahamas and very windy as well. So for my friends in the Bahamas, you are in store for a fairly wet and really a fairly windy forecast. The first one, of course, is going to be this non-tropical low moving south and trying to develop and push some strong winds in those areas. And then as that system moves up to the north and to the east, you're going to get the 1-2 punch out of this with that area of low pressure off towards the south. But you can see here on this high resolution model that you notice how windy it just stays. I mean, maybe not tropical storm gusts, but 20, 30 knot gusts over the next few days. It's going to kick up the surf and sea conditions highly. So small craft should certainly exercise caution here. And again, the winds are going to get even stronger. If you take a look on the western side of Florida here, towards the end of this high resolution model, we start to get even stronger winds just off the panhandle. That's going to be moving across the peninsula and then into the western Atlantic. And I told you again, that broad low might form just north of Grand Bahama. So wanted to point that out for you as well. Okay, so let's kind of wrap this up. Few things. First of all, again, I'm going to keep you updated. Let's talk about how I'm going to cover this for you. Beginning tomorrow, I'm going to be doing at least 2 updated forecast videos a day. So when you wake up in the morning, there'll be a new one for you. I'll do another one in the afternoon hours around this time, maybe just a little bit later, just depending on how I see this disturbance evolving. Certainly the opportunity to go live, probably start doing that on Wednesday evening at some time, again, just based on the timing of this. But that's what I love about this format is I can come on as often as I want to, and we can chat and we can interact. So look out for that as well. We'll be posting those potential live stream times on our community page. But certainly we'll be going live later into the week and giving you more and more updated forecasts videos on this as well. So again, thank you very much for liking the video. Thank you for subscribing if you do want the latest here at Meteo Mundo. But for the areas that I just mentioned, you see in red, we'll continue to update that. And of course, you can always check out our live stream in between these forecast videos. That is a basically 24-hour live stream of our radar system. It goes all across the Caribbean and the Bahamas, zooming in and out, giving you the updated information in real time for your area. So check out that as well. Okay, friends, that's the latest for now. Have a great day. We'll see you back here real soon, right here at Meteo Mundo.